welcome to Toss the Titles Down Under Dynasty with your host at Live from the Ben and with me as usual, my co-host at FF Doormat. How are you today, Matt?
Mate, I'm doing wonderfully well, as always. Glad to be talking a bit of football with you. A little bit jealous that I didn't get a public holiday for a gambling horse race event like we do in you guys do in Melbourne. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I took the Monday off and had a 4-day weekend. It was great.
Our head office is in Melbourne, so it was good. They left us alone. We got to do a bit of work on the Monday, and it was would have preferred the day off, but made the most of it anyway.
Right. It's transferred to the Great Eastern State, Southeastern State, Victoria.
You guys can have the public holiday. We'll have Sydney Harbour.
Yeah. I guess you're looking out the window from your house and seeing the view from Sydney Harbour every day.
Mate, yeah, I am from my $10 million house. Of course, you know me. Got two of them. They're so cheap. Crazy.
Yeah. And so, look, the NFL trade deadline has come and gone, and we actually had some action. Going to get into that. News, injuries.
Juicy.
Jamar Chase. What's happening with Jamar Chase? Is he dead?
So they're saying they didn't put him on IR, right? But because of the new IR rules and the practice squad rules and whatnot, you can put veterans on the practice squad now, and so because of that, if there's a slight chance, like if there's a 10% chance they can come back before that 4-week turnaround, they won't put guys on IR just to save them that time. So they reckon that's the case with Chase. They said, look, it looks like he's going to be out more than 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, but if something happens, if he happens to be, Andre Peterson or something like that, he can Adrian Peterson, he might come back after 3 weeks. So I think nothing's changed, but that's just the reason why he hasn't got an IR. Probably not the best news for fantasy owners, right? Because if he's on IR, you can whack him on your IR spot in most leagues. But yeah, he got a couple of injuries, right? I think he's got his hip injury, and there was another one too. So you don't like to see it, but nothing that looks like it'll be a long-term thing. And he might come back in time for the playoffs. Or it looks like he will. So could have been a lot worse, right? Could have been a Breece Hall, Javonte Williams type outlook.
Yeah, it could have been. But I mean, depending on how all in people are, this opens up a pretty a buying window for non-contending teams trying to acquire him.
100%. Yeah, I tried to trade from a couple of leagues at AJ Brown and just put it out there straight up. I didn't think anyone would give it to you, but you got to put them out there sometimes. These trades. Two people rejected. Two people rejected. Someone else came back and they didn't. I saw that they saw it, but they didn't reject. They just left it, and then I pulled it just before the game, just in case something happened. So now that AJ Brown had that 3-touchdown, 156-yard game, maybe now you can get that trade done with adding something back on top.
If you're contending, what would you have to add? And the Jefferson owner wasn't contending. What would you have to add to Chase to get Jefferson?
Not a lot, really. Do you think? Not a massive amount. You can't, a second. I don't think you can. I don't think you have to pay a first as well.
A first on top would be a lot. That'd be a lot.
I think a second's reasonable. If someone's asking for more than that, then you're probably going to pivot and do something else, right? Go for an AJ Brown or a DeAndre Hopkins or something, and just keep Chase.
Yeah, well, I mean, wide receiver is so plentiful. You should be able to like if you need to do something, and maybe your roster's so stacked you don't, but if you need to do something, you should be able to find a cheap pivot to kind of get you through right till he's back. For the
100%. Yeah, you're going to lose some of that upside, right? You're going to lose some of that upside with whoever comes in, but it's not, like I say, it's not season ending, and the playoffs is when you need those massive ceiling games, right? Till then, you can sort of sneak a few wins out. Maybe you got a soft draw. So yeah, that's what I'll be trying to do. And then,
I would actually go by Tyler Boyd. Trying to see if I can get him cheap.
he looked good, didn't he? Looked pretty good. So yeah, I think that makes sense both ways too, right? If you got Tyler Boyd and you're not contending, probably a good time to sell him.
I'm not a fantasy football wizard, not this season. Nino has been dropping amazing content with Jared on P2P, college football, getting amazing guests. If for some reason you watch us, you definitely need to be going and watching Nino and Jared on P2P. Pots to the playoffs. It's a fantastic podcast, and just the guests they're getting on there, absolutely.
It's worth it. It's worth it just for the intro, right? The intro is fire.
The intro is fire. Sometimes I'm just watching on repeat.
Dwight Peoples did it for him. It is a treat. So get on there and watch their melons instead of our bald heads.
And this is by choice. I shaved this, okay? All right.
Yeah, me too. Fashion choice.
I forgot the train of thought.
I think we were just talking about Chase. We just wrapping up the Chase injury. I think that was really it. I think Cooper Cup had an ankle injury, but it looks like he'll be okay. Touch and go. A couple of cornerbacks, I think, were injured, but nothing massively fantasy-wise. Mike Williams is still out. I think that happened last week anyway. So it hasn't been too bad this week for injuries, which is great, right?
Well, the week before was brutal, right? So it's got to average out.
Yeah, still getting over my Brees Hall trade. Didn't like trading him, but seemed like the right thing to do. So,
what did you end up trading for?
Kenneth Walker. So I'm straight up for Kenneth Walker in Kraken.
Yeah, in Kraken.
Yeah, I've got CH there, and I've got Dobbins. So Dobbins on IR, CH not producing, and there's a couple of stacked teams there. One of them is a team for Wizard. He said he wasn't a Wizard, but I think you're what 8-0 or 10-0 somehow. I don't know. It's looking pretty good.
I'm 8-0, but I think I've had an undefeated season before in that league and got best in the playoffs. I've had a pretty good team there the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think I knocked you off that league. Got lucky and knocked you off that league. But you're looking pretty strong this year, so. Yeah, I thought I couldn't sit my laurels. I had to move him, and still got a young guy, so it wasn't too bad.
Is part of it like the opportunity to go back to back? You think? Like, do you think you would have felt like that urgency to move if you hadn't won last year?
No way. Yeah, no way in the world. Just something special about going back to back, right?
Yeah.
I think if you can do it, it's like a real feather in your cap, and you're like,
yeah,
you know what? I'm losing a bit of value, but I've still got a young guy. I've still got that youth, good upside.
And were you able to do that straight up? Yeah. That's pretty good.
I offered it straight up, and Mr. Glover came back and asked for a third on top, which I thought that was pretty funny. So I was like, "Yeah, mate, have your third." That's like, why wouldn't you? Why not ask for a third? So look, yeah,
why wouldn't you? And the thing about that league as well, Kenneth Walker's lack of pass catching isn't as big a deal because you get a point. It's a point per carry league. You get 0.25 per carry.
Yeah. That definitely adds up as well. I was really tempted just to sit him on my bench and just wait for him to bounce back. But yeah, like you said, I think when you go for these back to backs, right, something special. So
yeah, you've got to have a crack when you've won and you're contending. And you're right there. You're right amongst it. Me, you, and the big fella Lloydie, we're all close in the points for.
It's got to get there in the playoffs, right? And anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. Yeah, actually, we got 4 teams. Brad's got a good team there too. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I would like to win Kraken this year so then I can quit it.
Well, if it's not me, mate, I hope it's you. So, good luck. Except for
Thank
when you're
you.
playing
I
me.
appreciate it. What did I talk about my Bruce Hall trade?
No, what was your trade?
Like, I accepted it just before the pod last week, so I didn't talk about it. I traded Travis Etienne in the late second and got Bruce Hall back.
How you feeling about that now that ETN's just gone large?
Look, I still feel pretty good about it, to be honest, because I'm getting like Etienne's 2.5 years older than, almost 2.5 years older than Bruce Hall. I feel
Had the
like he
injury
had
as
a
well,
big
right?
game. Pardon?
He's got an injury past as well too, right? Like it's not like
He's had an injury
yeah.
past, and I know that he's listed like 210 or 215, but he looks small, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He does look a little bit smaller.
Yeah, look, I'm fine with it. I don't think that I could have got the trade done with this owner without doing that.
Yeah, it's all about your league, right? You got to know what your league is. Just because you can do it one league doesn't make you do it in the other. Possibly, maybe if you had waited, you wouldn't have had to chuck in that second. But either way, I think it's a good trade. You probably feel pretty happy you got Brees Hall, generational talent, and I think we're saying beforehand that trade if something had to happen to ETN, right, in that game, you just never know. That'd be it. His value would just plummet. So.
Feeling pretty good about it. I also acquired my first Jonathan Taylor share last week in a
That was a
league.
good trade. Good trade for you.
So I traded a first, a second, a third, and a fourth for Jonathan Taylor. 23 first, second, third, and fourth. I think at the moment, right, two things factored into being able to get this trade done. Non-contending teams don't want to hold running backs right now because you're just worried about an injury happening and that player losing so much value.
It doesn't matter what they do in the field, really. Look at Derrick Henry, right? Like he's balling out, he's playing well, but his value is just as soon as they get old. In some leagues he might hold his value, but other leagues we just don't want these older running backs, like you say. So
you just don't know how bad the injury is going to be. Like I acquired a couple of Javonte Williams shares right after he got hurt. I kind of rushed out to acquire him because I loved him. He was like my RB1. And now I look at Dobbins and it's not just the ACL like Bruce Hall has. Javonte Williams with the ACL, with the PCL, and now I'm a little bit, did I do the right thing?
I think you always have that. You have a bit of buyer's regret whenever you buy these injured guys. It's probably fair enough too with those injuries, the complex injuries. But I think that's just a bit of human nature when you buy them and then you just out. But I think same as Dobbins, right? When they sort of come back on the field or Akers, they start running around. Their price bounces back regardless. So you can always cash out then if you want to. If Taylor has a big second half of the year, chances are you might get more than just a single first for him. You might be able to get two firsts for him.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And I tried to buy Walker in that league for a first and a second. I'd much rather Taylor for a first, second, third, fourth. He's a lot more proven asset. Kind of goes into what we're going to talk about with the Nyheim Hines trade. Maybe starts catching some more passes.
Yeah, maybe he does, right? Like he looked pretty good with catching the ball and he made a couple of, I think he had like a 60-yard reception, not all air yards, but he's had a couple of good receptions in the past, good receiving games, but they wanted to give it to Nyheim Hines. He was an exceptional pass catcher, but that option is not there right now. So maybe we'll see how it pans out. I'm not saying he's going to catch, 10 balls a game or anything, but maybe they'll start giving to him a little bit more. Even he was pinching some goal line carries too, he mind. So maybe Taylor gets a few more of those.
And I think another reason I was able to get that trade done is the 2023 draft and draft position, right? I think if you're out of it, people really want to make sure that they're kind of in that, what would you say, top three? Would you say it's a three-player tier in Superflex with Bijan Robinson, CJ Stroud, and Bryce Young? Or do you think one of those players sits alone?
No, I think like Bijan's the jewel of the crown, but it's Superflex, right? So these quarterbacks will be right up there anyway. I think it's a bit of a teardrop, but these stud quarterbacks, especially with the last couple of years, the guys are really struggling, and then there's a couple of retirees, right? So it's getting a bit thinner. So top three, and I think once the draft comes around, it'll still be the top half of the draft. Will still be massive. There's a lot of hype yet to come.
Yeah, and this particular team I traded with, I mean, they were kind of 3 and 4. They were about, but they actually had the lowest potential points. And I think when he realised that, he kind of made the shift to kind of not I wouldn't say blow it up, but retool, because he's got a good team. And also in this league, we start 12 players, which is brutal. So
it's tough. It's a tough league.
The more good players you can get, the better, right?
Yeah. Look, for that league to be on the top of that league with the most points scored, you've really got to be something special. So whoever that is, it must be an absolute genius.
I think that's you, isn't it?
It's me, but I got bundled out in the second round last year, so these things happen. But it's a fun league. It's good. I like that you got to start 12. It's something a bit different, right? But it was a good move for you. I think it was a good move for Scotty too. I know Scotty's a big JT fan. I think he's probably bigger than me coming out. He was on him real early. So for him to sell him, it probably makes sense.
He's got a lot of JT though, so maybe he was just kind of hedging a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense for both, right? If you're already got the number one sign up potential points, why wouldn't you just try and rebuild a little bit?
And the pick I sent isn't my own first. It's probably going to be top. So it's going to be somewhere in between 5 to 8.
Yeah, I like it.
And another trade I made this week is I traded my 23 first second and Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence for C-Mac and Justin Fields. And then C-Mac proceeded to explode. I had the top score
Superman
in console wars this week, just gone.
He looked sensational. I'm really excited for Trey Lance next year when he starts balling out with CMC as another weapon. Even this year, Debo didn't play right. Imagine when Debo gets on the field as well. Got to be pretty happy if you're a 49ers fan. Pretty ecstatic for CMC. He'll get to play finals football and have a shot at winning the Super Bowl. So you'd love to see it. But yeah, boy, he looked good, didn't he? Just when he went up and jumped, 4 foot in the air and took that ball, it was just sight to see. Looks good in that uniform too. It was nice to see.
Yeah, it looks very natural. Him in the red. Looks like that.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
He belongs in it.
Meant to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Could have Brady throwing him the ball next year.
No. And
I doubt it. You never know.
You reckon Brady's going to go to the 49ers? What?
No. Oh, he's a lifelong 49ers fan, and there was talk of him going there. I don't think he will, but people have already started putting him in a 49ers uniform, photoshopping him. Just a bit of Twitter gossip. It's not going to happen. There'll be Trey Lance for sure.
Definitely. Trey Lance is... We're seeing limitations of Jimmy Garoppolo in that offense.
We're saying a couple of weeks ago, right? The fact that Jimmy G's starting to play a bit bad is just you can hear all these murmurs now that of Trey Lance coming back. People just forgot about how limited he was. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves the backup QB until he's on the field, and then you realise why he's the backup QB. So there you go.
Very true, sir. And now on to the main event. Trades, a record amount of trades around the NFL trade deadline. Still a ways away from the NBA, but we're getting there.
We're getting there. It's pretty good to wake up to, wasn't it? Like, ding, 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 ding on Twitter when we woke up this morning.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was nice. No Kareem Hunt trade, purely for my Kareem Hunt shares. Of course, I was just being a bit selfish there, but you can't complain.
I was shocked about
tons of trades. Yeah, I think they put out. They say they wanted a third. I think a third for him or something. It was not a massive price. I thought someone would have bid. And he looked okay.
There's a few contenders that could have used a big time running back.
Yeah, I thought the Eagles might have chucked in. I guess they got Sanders, but he's got to be an upgrade on Sanders. Even the Chiefs, I guess they wouldn't go back there because they did cut him for lying. So I guess they lost that trust. So they probably wouldn't bring him back. But yeah, a surprise that someone wouldn't have picked him up. When Clay Chapel went for a second, I guess it's a more skilled position. But you think, a third for Kareem Hunt is not a lot to ask. But apart from that, everything else is, trades all over the shop. Loved it.
Yeah. So let's talk about. We'll talk about the first one I put up here. The Vikings traded a 2023 second round and a 2024 third round pick in exchange for TJ Hawkinson and a 2023 fourth round pick and a 2024 conditional fourth round pick. No idea what those conditions are. I'm not going to go and find it. You can go look for it yourself, people. Look, I really like this trade for the Vikings. I feel like they're getting Hawkinson and they're dropping back maybe one round in 2024. But they're just in 2023, they're going from a late second to an early fourth. Like they're probably dropping back 40 spots in the draft.
It's a no-brainer.
Feels like
absolute
stealing.
No-brainer. Yeah, look, it does. And I think it's a great trade for Hawkinson too, right? He'll get to possibly play finals. Think he would. I think he'd be in the playoff hunt. And he goes to a team that's, we like off. He's underrated, but he's not Kirk Cousins as much as Kirk Cousins has his critics. He's fantasy-wise, he's been sensational. And there's going to be a lot of he's got Thielen to draw coverage and Jefferson. So I love it. I love it for fantasy, and I think for real football too. It's you got to be pretty happy. I know you're a Vikings fan, big Vikings fan, so sure you were pretty excited this morning to wake up to that.
Look, Hawk was one of my favourite players. I scooped him up kind of in lots of places. I've traded a few of those shares now because I just felt like his value was still holding way too high despite a real lack of production. But how do you think he's going to go for fantasy football on the Vikings?
Yeah, look, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited for it. I think he'll be. He might get a bit more consistency now. That's been his only thing. Hey, coach.
We're the men. All right, boys to men.
Boys to men.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's the only question we've had. Right, he just hasn't been consistent. He's had these massive games, and then he's gone down a bit. So hopefully he can get that back now. Just be interesting to see how he fits in that system. If he might take a few games to produce, but I think it's fantastic. Not sure long term how it's going to roll out with Ev Smith there, but that's an afterthought really. If you're the Vikings, you just got to go get your guy. And I think that's just a smash accepted. Every team would have done that, I reckon, for Hawkinson. There's not many teams where he wouldn't be an upgrade on your tight ends. Not just in terms of attacking football too, right? He's a great blocker, pancaking people, really contribute there as well. So, Yeah.
Do you think that he becomes the second option there after Jefferson?
I think so. I think it could be. I think Thielen's very, very wily, very sneaky, but just getting a little bit older. So yeah, I think he could be. Yeah, I think he's what they hoped Irv Smith would have been by now.
Well, what would you pay for him in Dynasty? Would you pay a late first for him on the Vikings?
Tight end premium. Maybe you want to wait and see how he beds in, because I think even if he does look great, his price is not probably going to change that much, right? Because like you're saying, he just holds so much value anyway. It's not like people are going to discount him now, right? So yeah, look, I'd pay a first for him if I was a contender on either a tight end, but I just wait a week or two to see how he goes. What's your feelings, mate? Would you give it first?
I don't know. Is that a cop out? I just feel that it may take a little bit for him to be integrated correctly into the offense. He might start off slow, and I'm not sure how much he's going to give you. But I feel like there's less competition for targets on this team. And Kirk just throws the ball. I mean, he doesn't throw deep at all, right? Kirk just loves throwing short passes. So there's the potential that he feasts.
Yeah, I think he's got to upgrade there at quarterback, right? Like a more consistent quarterback. So yeah, I think wait a week or two, and then if he starts producing, like I said, his price, like you pointed out, his price is just he holds that price anyway, so it's not like he'd pick it up cheaper now. Really.
I'd be holding all the hock that I've got. If he struggles, I try and buy. I'd see, if I mean, I've got some teams that aren't contending. I would buy for an early second on teams where I've got early seconds.
I think that's a good price if you can get him. I think that's fine. People get impatient. It is Dynasty, but people do get impatient, especially with these tight ends. You need a few years sometimes, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, he's produced though, but the targets weren't there.
Just not consistent. That's all it is, isn't it? Just he hasn't had that consistency, so this could be what it needs.
Bears acquired Chase Claypool for their own second round pick, which is going to be around the 40 mark, most likely. What do you think of this trade?
Bit of a strange one from the Bears, but good for Justin Fields. And I guess it's a vote of confidence for Justin Fields. I like Chase Claypool. I think he's a bit underrated. Not everyone can be Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but I think he's a good player. So I think a second's fine, but I don't know, just a little bit weird from the Bears. But for Justin Fields, I think that's a vote of confidence. They've gone out and they've traded a defensive player for a wide receiver. So it's an upgrade for Fields. Not too sure how you feel about it as a Bear fan. So the reports were that the Steelers were going to trade him to either the Packers or the Bears, and the Packers pick was looking earlier than the Ravens. The Bears wanted to give the Ravens, and the Steelers said, no, we're going to give the Packers unless you give us yours. So, probably I guess the Bears would like to give him the later pick, but it is what it is. And I guess you're pushing the chips in a little bit with Fields too, right? You can sort of see what you've got there. I think he's looked okay, Fields, especially against the Patriots. He looked great. So give him another mouth to feed and see what he can do.
Yeah, look, I think this is great for Fields. I think he's the kind of big, fast target that Justin Fields needs, and will help him really flourish. Underrated. He was on a team with a lot of other options, right, in the receiving game. He wasn't a target hog by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that he can produce a lot more than what he has. I'd definitely be trying to buy for like a mid-second round pick.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a fair price. There's a lot of upside there. You can be an absolute weapon in the red zone if him and Fields gel. Could be a match made in heaven. How are you feeling for your Bears fan with this trade? Like apart from the fantasy side of things, how do you feel? Giving up Roquan for Claypool, pretty much, right? Like,
Well, you're getting an additional year of Claypool on a cost control contract, right? And like the wide receiver position has become so valuable in the NFL, and the middle linebackers position just it's not as valuable. And then again, it's like supporting Justin Fields, and you've got to do everything you can do to kind of develop an infrastructure for him to keep getting better. And this is a step in the right direction.
It's about time to have something. So,
I mean, we've seen players leave, wide receivers, leave and explode, and get better. I mean, Stefan Diggs didn't have a true breakout year until he went to the Bills. He never had over 1,100 yards in a season, which is like middling wide receiver too. Even Tyreek Hill, like, how much value did Tyreek Hill lose in the offseason after that trade? Because people thought, he's going to drop off, and he's on track for his best year ever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not putting Claypool in with those players, but I think it's wrong to assume that there isn't any upside there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good take. I think like I say, not everyone going to be Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, but I think price dependent. What you're paying for Claypool's could be a nice little investment.
As a Bears fan, would I prefer them just to use one of the picks they used on a defensive player, one of George Pickens during the draft? Yes, but they didn't. It is what it is. It's move forward and do the best thing you can do for your team. I wonder, could they have gotten a Jerry Jeudy for that pick? There's rumblings. Who was available? Who would you rather, Jerry Jeudy or Claypool? I mean, technically, Claypool's been better in the NFL, right?
Yeah, look, it's a toss-up, really. As sad as that is to say, because Jeudy was, he looks so good, and he was the next best thing, but he just hasn't produced. So,
and if you look at Jerry Jeudy's dynasty value in the dynasty, sorry.
I said Claypool might be a better match too, just with Fields too. Having that big body to throw to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got Mooney on one side, and then you got this absolute, target on the other.
He makes, with his size and speed, I think he adds a real dynamic element to that offense. And I'm excited. I think he'll be successful.
Yeah, love to see it. Bit of Mapletron for the Bears.
Mate, remember the Mapletron days? Feels like years ago.
Mapletron. It does, doesn't it?
Miami traded running back Jeff Wilson. The 49ers traded Jeff Wilson to Miami in exchange for a 2023 fifth-round draft pick. Now, the reason I find this peculiar is that the 49ers are obviously trying to win this year. And, I mean, depth at running back is a really important position. So, in their offense and the way that they work. So, I was surprised that they traded Jeff Wilson for a fifth-round pick. But, I mean, all the trades they've made, they really need to get back some draft capital. How do you feel about Wilson in Miami? Because he was a starter before they acquired C-Mac. Like, you could put him in your lineups every week.
It's a bit of a roller coaster of emotions. It was up, down, sideways, all over the shop. I guess they got Elijah Mitchell coming back, the 49ers, which is maybe why they traded Wilson. Maybe they did a bit of a solid for Wilson too. Maybe he wanted to be a starter, so that's why they traded him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess you get a little bit of draft capital back. was looking good for most of their, and I still think most of their guy. But he's going to be spelled with Wilson, and they're both off injured, so whichever one is not injured, I guess will be the guy.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I don't see most holding up over the course of the year because he just hasn't tended to do it.
Still great when he's been on the field, right? I think he's had some of the fastest runs in the NFL in those stats that they measure. He was one of the fastest there, but he just can't stay on the field. So,
but the best ability is availability.
It's true. It's underrated.
The other one with fantasy impacts, but maybe not too much. Well, actually, we'll leave that one last. We'll talk about Nyheim Hines to the Bills. How do you feel about Nyheim Hines to the Bills?
Yeah, it's just a mess there, isn't it? Like James Cook, Singletary, Moss. Everyone was telling us Moss was he was taking over. Just didn't happen. So Hines, I guess he can come in and he could ascend as the top pass catching back in that off field. But when you got Josh Allen pinching goal line runs and throwing it to Diggs, 50 times a game, what's his ceiling going to be? It's not going to be that massive, is it? So much of a muchness for Nyheim Hines really. Probably on the field, it's probably a good impact for them. Probably a smart buy for the Bills. Nice gadget player there, and probably a bit more upside than Moss for them on the field. But I'm not sure how much fantasy impact it's going to have. You just don't know how that's going to play out there. It's a bit messy there, isn't it?
And all those poor people who took James Cook high in rookie drafts. I mean, I was seeing people promote him as high as like, oh, James Cook's like the 106.
Yep. Yeah, 108. A couple of places I saw him go.
Ouch, man. That hurts, huh?
Sometimes they need a year, so you just don't know. But yeah, you've got to be patient to get your money back.
Running backs though, they tend to, if they don't show anything straight away, they tend to just not do much, right? Usually.
Yeah, usually if there's no impact in that first round. I did see that stat a couple of years ago. Someone had it out. Can't remember who it was, but it was very rare, unless it was injury related. That I think it might have been for Sonny Michel or something. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, it was pretty much that. If they don't have an impact in that first year, then it's not going to happen, unless it's injury related. But smart move by the Bills. Didn't cost them much. Fresh face in the building, and he'll no doubt he'll contribute for them. So love to see him as Bills fans.
Yeah, look, hopefully Cook still takes over that role next year.
Yep.
And then lastly, from an offensive perspective, Calvin Ridley to the Jaguars. Calvin Ridley is suspended for the duration of the 2022 NFL season for gambling on the Falcons. So the compensation is a bit complex. It's as follows. If he's not reinstated by the date, I don't have the date here, but if he's not reinstated, it's a 2023 six-round pick. If Ridley makes the team, Atlanta will receive a 2023 fifth-round pick. If he's not reinstated by the start of the season, it's a six-round pick. Then if Ridley makes the team in 2024, the Falcons will receive a fourth-round pick. If he hits playing time milestones, it's a third-round pick. If the Jaguars get a long-term deal with Ridley done, it turns into a second-rounder.
They made it harder for us.
Yeah, I know. That's confusing.
Doesn't take much to confuse me. So I guess the worst case scenario is it's a fifth and a second, right? The most they'll pay for him.
And the thing is, if they're paying a second, it's because he's probably balled out and he's worth it.
It's up to them, right? They did a long term deal. If not, then forget it. I love it. I love it for Ridley. I think it's great for him to get out of that organisation. Not that it was terrible there, but he probably needs a fresh change.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone makes mistakes. It wasn't the world's biggest mistake that he did. It was just I think it was a nominal amount, right? It was like $20 or something. He didn't even try and hide it. He betted his own name. I think it's been well covered. So hopefully he gets back on the field and can get back to his form. He looked sensational when he was in the field. So yeah, I think that's where it was up for Trevor Lawrence and Ridley. And I hope the young man gets back in the field and fulfills his dreams, because it's just when some of these other guys are on and you see the things they've done and they get a couple of weeks, it just doesn't seem right that he's been rubbed out for as long as he has. So it'd be great to see him back on the field.
It would be great. No, you're right. That'd be fantastic. And hopefully mentally he's good. I mean, seeing him on Twitter, he seems pretty happy about the trade. Hopefully it's everything he wants to be, and he's that guy. If he becomes Trevor Lawrence, is Stephon Diggs. He's Tyreek Hill.
Yep, could be. What do you?
He's got that kind of talent.
No, he has. He definitely has. What are you paying for him if you're buying?
Look, I'd buy for. I think you'll still be able to buy him right now for a second. Right, I think you can get him for a mid-second, or off a contender for a player who's playing, and I would do that absolutely all day long.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're not getting those. Maybe if you're rebuilding, you can give him for a player instead. Maybe in the second, maybe you got a Cooks or something like that. That might be a move to make, so you avoid those potential points. I think the second's a good price. You're not going to get him for a third now.
No, it might even be. He might even be one of those players as a 2 and a 3, or 2 seconds. Potentially.
Yep. Yeah, it could be.
But I think you could probably still get him for like the draft. Come rookie drafts, you could probably get him for like a 201, 204, straight up.
Yep. I think that's a fair price range.
And look, this does involve an offensive player, Chase Edmonds, who got traded to the Broncos, along with the 2023 first-round pick. From Miami, who got back Bradley Chubb. Man, what do you think of this trade from the Miami perspective?
It's great. Great for the Dolphins.
You think it's a good trade for the Dolphins?
I think it's great for them because their window is now. So if you pushing your chips in not to have, why not push another one in? I like Bradley Chubb. I think he's still a good player, and maybe he can be a difference maker.
He hasn't been healthy really since his rookie season.
Yeah, it hasn't been. Maybe
he's playing well.
Yeah, and maybe just needs that change of scenery as well. To sometimes your luck changes if you go somewhere else. I guess it's a lot to play for an outside linebacker, but you are pushing chips in, right?
Well, he's not an out. He's a 3-4 pass rusher. He's an edge rusher, right? It was a 4-3 scheme. He'd be an end.
Yeah. Well, a lot to pay for an older defensive player he's still young, but he's not. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not you drafting one of these guys with your 23 first, right? You probably got to pay him as well.
That's the thing. You got to. I mean, they've just paid Hill. I mean, they paid Armstead last season. I mean, it's looking like they'll have to pay Tua. His performance.
I think if you're a Miami fan, I don't know how George feels about it, but you got to be pretty happy because, how often do you win a Super Bowl? Never. We're back in the 70s, whatever. If you're a Dolphins fan, so why not? You know, who cares if you're losing a bit of value on that 23 first if you get the ring?
Yeah. Look,
So,
and
yeah.
first round picks are they're a gamble, right?
Yeah.
They're toy costs on whether the player works out or not, or whether the player is elite or not. And Bradley Chubb he's probably he's not a tier one pass rusher, but he's probably tier two, right?
Yeah, he's got that ceiling of tier one, you know, close enough
He
anyway,
does have
right?
this.
Like
He's got that tier one ceiling, but
Yeah.
I would say right now he's definitely in tier two. Like I mean, I heard that teams are offering 2 first round picks for the Carolina Panthers pass rusher, Brian Burns.
Yeah, right.
I mean, to me, Burns is in a different tier than Chubb, is the way that he's produced has been in the NFL, and he's still only 24, whereas Chubb's 26, and no injury history. But so I mean, I think Chubb for a single first is actually a pretty good deal. Now that I've talked it through in my head.
Yeah, the NFL is a bit different than the fantasy football, right? With these picks. So yeah, like I said, you push your chips in. You're probably not going to get another quarterback, right, with those later picks. And they've got to win now. They've got Waddle, they've got Hill, they've got Tua when he's on there. So makes sense if you're a Dolphins fan, you've got to be pretty happy with that trade.
So the final output from that trade with the 49ers ended up being Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb. I mean, that's 3 pretty foundational pieces of your team that you got from 1 first round pick.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Look, whatever happens, like
pretty good outcome, right?
Yeah, look, whatever happens, sometimes you can judge these trades with rose-colored glasses afterwards and say, oh, we've been better off keeping the picks and whatnot. But that's a bit naive. When you have got these squads that are there or thereabouts, you got to make moves. I reckon it's just so hard to win nowadays. Really is. So many good sides out there, and it just changes so much NFL, right? So I like it.
Changes in the blink of an eye. Right.
You going, Nate?
Hi, Nate.
Good morning. Good morning, Nate. Good evening.
Well, I mean, was there anything else you want to talk about? Was there a trade that I missed? I don't think there's a trade that I missed.
Not worth talking about anyway, really. I think it's pretty well covered, most of it. It was nice to see, and looking forward to a bit of football this weekend.
Yeah. Looking forward to see the impact that these players make on their new teams and the way they fit in and what happens with their fantasy football value. Anyway. If we're done, should we sign off?
I'm done.
All right. Bye, people.